A sleek black hotel car pulled up to the entrance, answering a call in Dutch in front of a millionaire. The very next day, he sent for her. Eliza's phone buzzed as she mopped the polished floors of the elegant lobby at the Grand Monarch Hotel. Normally, she would have ignored a call during work hours, rule number 1 from her manager, Mr. Harrison, especially for the cleaning staff. But this time, she recognized the number. It was the university. After 6 failed attempts at securing a scholarship for her master's in linguistics, this call could be her big break. She paused, whispering to herself, hiding behind a grand marble pillar. This moment could change everything. "Hello, Eliza Grant." She answered quietly, hoping not to attract attention from the guests walking through the lobby. On the other end, a voice spoke flawlessly in Dutch. It was Professor Van Dyck from the University of Amsterdam. Eliza responded in the same language, her words flowing naturally as they discussed her application for the international program. She worried about her motivation letter, unsure whether it had arrived on time, but just then, she noticed the silence around her. She looked up and froze. Richard Blake, the billionaire owner of the hotel empire, was standing just a few feet away, watching her with wide-eyed curiosity. Beside him stood her manager, Mr. Harrison, his face twisted in fury. Eliza's heart raced as she quickly muttered, "I need to go. I'll call you later, Professor." She hung up the phone and stood frozen. "Eliza Grant, my office. Now." Mr. Harrison's voice sliced through the air. The walk to the basement office felt like an eternity. Eliza could feel the stares of her colleagues, some filled with pity, others barely hiding their satisfaction. At 29, she was the only black woman in the cleaning department with a college degree, something Mr. Harrison was quick to overlook. "You know the rules, Grant. No phones during work hours. Especially not in the public areas." Mr. Harrison scolded the moment she stepped inside, and speaking in, what was that? French? He sneered. "No, Dutch," Eliza corrected, but immediately regretted it. "I don't care if you were speaking Martian. What I care about is that Mr. Blake, the owner of this hotel, saw one of his cleaning staff ignoring her duties to chat on the phone in the lobby." The injustice stung like acid. The white receptionists took personal calls regularly without so much as a word of reprimand. But Eliza knew the routine. It was always the same: "I'm assigning you to the convention center restrooms for the next 3 months. Maybe there, you can practice as many languages as you want, without embarrassing the hotel." Eliza's stomach dropped. The convention center meant long, grueling cleaning shifts after corporate events, with no overtime pay. It was Richard's usual punishment for anyone who crossed him. "You can go, and be thankful you're not being fired," he added coldly. That night felt endless. In her small, shared apartment with 2 other nurses, Eliza cried quietly, staring at her linguistics degree and international certificates framed on the peeling wall. 6 years of cleaning hotel rooms while struggling to save for a master's degree, all the while sending resumes that never even got a reply after in-person interviews. The next morning, Eliza showed up early, determined to maintain her professionalism despite the injustice. That was when the phone at the front desk rang. "Eliza Grant, please call Jennifer, the head receptionist. HR wants you immediately." HR was on the top floor, near the executive offices, territory that was uncharted for cleaning staff. As the elevator climbed, Eliza felt invisible, as always, surrounded by executives discussing multi-million-dollar mergers without even acknowledging her presence. "Ms. Grant," the HR director greeted her, motioning for her to take a seat. Eliza sat stiffly, bracing herself for the worst, most likely termination. "Mr. Blake has requested a meeting with you." The owner's office was larger than Eliza's entire apartment. Richard Blake, 45, was a legend in the business world for turning bankrupt hotels into luxurious properties. And now, he was staring directly at her. "Dutch, French, Italian, and Mandarin, correct?" he asked bluntly, flipping through an open file on his desk. Eliza blinked, confused. "How do you know my resume?" "I asked HR for it as soon as I heard you yesterday," he replied. "Honors degree in linguistics from Georgetown. Fluent in 6 languages, including 2 Asian languages. And you've been cleaning my hotel for 6 years." What Eliza didn't know was that this meeting was no accident. Behind that phone call in Dutch was a much bigger story, an unlikely connection that would not only change her life but expose a system of discrimination that had kept extraordinary talent hidden behind brooms and cleaning products for years. If this story of workplace prejudice stirs your anger, sign up to learn how a simple phone call in a foreign language became the catalyst for a transformation that even the most powerful billionaire could never have predicted. The office was silent for a few seconds. Eliza stood still, her mind racing to process what she had just heard. Richard Blake knew her, really knew her, not just as the invisible woman in a cleaning uniform everyone ignored in the hallways. 6 years, Blake repeated, closing the file and crossing his arms. "May I ask why a Georgetown-educated linguist is cleaning my bathrooms instead of working on international translations?" Eliza took a deep breath. "I sent 47 resumes to the International Relations Department of this hotel. All ignored. I tried for an internal transfer 12 times, always denied." "By whom?" Eliza asked, raising an eyebrow. "My resume has been in the hotel's files for 6 years, along with my 12 transfer requests." As the manager stammered out half-hearted excuses, Eliza continued her walk. In the HR department, Eliza found an unexpected ally, Sophia Williams, a newly hired recruitment analyst who seemed genuinely enthusiastic. "Eliza, finally." Sophia greeted her. "I saw your file when I started 3 months ago and couldn't understand why someone with your qualifications was in housekeeping." Eliza confided in her while finalizing the paperwork. "I tried talking to Hughes, but he shut me down immediately." That afternoon, while preparing for the conference in the VIP room, Eliza noticed something disturbing. The event documents contained incorrect and inappropriate Mandarin translations that could cause serious diplomatic misunderstandings with the Chinese executives. She quickly corrected the errors and redesigned the welcome materials. "How did you know they were wrong?" Blake asked, having silently observed her work from the doorway. "The previous translation used terms that could be considered offensive in formal corporate Chinese," Eliza explained. "Whoever did this knows the basics of the language, but not the cultural nuances." Blake nodded thoughtfully. "Hughes assured me he hired the best translators. It cost a fortune. He hired someone without checking their credentials." Eliza corrected, pointing out a critical error in the translation of a partnership proposal. The next day, the conference began. Eliza moved effortlessly among the international business executives, exuding natural elegance as she switched between Dutch and Mandarin with ease. She mediated conversations and facilitated connections that would typically take days to establish. During a break, she was approached by Hughes, the director of operations, someone who had never acknowledged her presence in the 6 years she had worked at the hotel. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Ms. Grant, I must admit, I'm impressed. Harrison clearly misjudged your potential," he said, his tone cold. "Thank you, Mr. Hughes," Eliza replied smoothly. "It's impressive how my resume listing fluency in Mandarin was overlooked, especially when the hotel spent $50,000 on inadequate translation services for this conference." Hughes' smile faltered. "There must be some misunderstanding. I never received confirmation of receipt of any of my emails over the last 6 years," Eliza interrupted calmly. "Including those that alerted you to critical errors in the translations contracted for Asian events." What Hughes didn't know was that Eliza had gained access to the translation contract records. The company that handled the translations belonged to Hughes' niece, who had no proven experience in formal Mandarin but was charging expert rates. Worse, all the previous translations contained similar errors that could have cost the hotel millions and lost business. On the third day of the conference, something unexpected happened. A Dutch businessman recognized Eliza. "Wait, aren't you the student who wrote that brilliant article on linguistic variation in international business, published in the Journal of Applied Linguistics?" he asked. Eliza confirmed, surprised to be recognized. "I've cited your work at 2 conferences." The man exclaimed, calling over his colleagues to meet her. Blake, who had been watching from a distance, noticed how Hughes was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. What Hughes didn't realize was that while he smiled and made small talk, Eliza was weaving a web that would reveal not just isolated mistakes, but a whole system of institutionalized discrimination and corruption. This system had kept talents like hers suppressed, while inflated contracts were being awarded to unqualified people. What no one at the Grand Monarch Hotel realized was that the black cleaning lady who had answered a call in Dutch wasn't there by accident. Behind that seemingly simple department transfer, a larger plan was unfolding. A plan that would not only change Eliza's life, but expose a system of discrimination that had affected dozens of employees. The question was no longer whether she could prove what had happened, but how devastating the truth would be when it came to light. On the morning of the 4th day of the conference, the Grand Monarch Hotel buzzed with excitement. Eliza's efforts had generated preliminary contracts that exceeded all expectations. As she walked through the lobby, she noticed something troubling. Hughes was leading a young woman, who seemed nervous, toward the executive elevators. "Miss Hughes, your Mandarin translation is adequate," he said in a controlled tone. "There's no need for concern." Eliza recognized the last name immediately. The young woman was carrying a folder marked Final Translation, Master Contract. A quick glance as she passed confirmed her suspicions. The same critical errors from before were still present in the text. Eliza knew she needed to get this to Blake immediately. She rushed to the CEO's office. Blake was reviewing documents when Eliza entered without knocking. "Eliza, what's going on?" he asked, noticing her urgency. "Whitmore is replacing my correct translations with flawed versions done by her niece," Eliza explained, showing him screenshots on her phone. "And I have proof that this has been happening for years." Blake stood up abruptly. "Are you absolutely sure?" "I have everything documented. What's more, I found records of inflated payments to her translation company, 3 times above market rate, while qualified candidates like me were systematically rejected." As they spoke, Sophia from HR hurried into the room. "Mr. Blake, sorry to interrupt, but I found something you need to see right away," she said, handing him a folder. "Hiring records for the last 5 years. There's a consistent pattern of rejecting qualified non-white candidates, especially women." Blake flipped through the documents, his face hardening with every page. The outside investigation had detected something. But this is systematic. At that moment, Hughes entered the office without knocking, interrupting the conversation. "Richard, the Dutch are ready to sign. but they're asking about some inconsistencies in the translations. Eliza must have mixed something up, he said. The silence that followed was chilling. Blake walked slowly to the door and closed it. Thomas, I'm seeing payment records for $50,000 for incompetent translations, while we have qualified employees cleaning bathrooms. Blake said, his voice dangerously calm. Any explanation? Hughes paled visibly. I don't know what you're talking about. We hire the best. Your niece, Thomas, has zero experience in formal Mandarin, Eliza interrupted. She has a fake certification. She placed a printed email on the table. I just confirmed with Peking University, Ashley Whitmore was never certified by them. Hughes shot Eliza a look of pure hatred. You're nobody. A cleaning lady who thinks she can play with the big boys. PhD in applied linguistics from Georgetown, Eliza corrected calmly. With 6 international publications, all in the HR files. You've lost repeatedly. Thomas Blake interjected. I've called an emergency board meeting in 30 minutes. By then, I want her resignation letter on my desk. You can't be serious, Hughes laughed nervously, because of this. This? Blake warned, his voice icy. Choose your next words very carefully. 2 hours later, the executive auditorium was packed. All managers, supervisors, and directors had been summoned urgently. The front row, Dutch and Chinese business executives waited, their curiosity piqued. Harrison, the cleaning manager, sat beside other department managers, looking confused. Blake took the stage, Eliza at his side. Today, we've uncovered a systematic scheme of discrimination and nepotism that has cost this company millions, Blake announced gravely. For years, managers like Thomas Hughes and Sarah Harrison have enforced unofficial policies that have harmed not only our employees but also our bottom line. Behind him, a presentation began, showing comparative charts of employee qualifications versus positions, hiring and rejection statistics by race and gender, and overpriced contracts with companies linked to the manager's family members. Ms. Grant, whom some of you knew only as a cleaning staff member, saved our company from a diplomatic and financial disaster this week, Blake continued. By correcting translations that would have led to millions in contractual misunderstandings. The Asian businessmen nodded in recognition, some applauding quietly. As a result of this investigation, Thomas Hughes has been terminated for cause, Blake announced. Sarah Harrison is suspended while we complete our investigation into her involvement. And, effective immediately, we are implementing a complete audit of all hiring and promotions over the past 5 years. The room fell into stunned silence. Harrison, now pale, stared at the floor, and finally, Blake smiled slightly. I am pleased to announce that Dr. Eliza Grant is being named our new Global Director of Internal Communications, overseeing all of our multilingual operations. The auditorium erupted in applause, some hesitant, many enthusiastic, especially from the cleaning crew sitting at the back, who applauded with tears in their eyes. As Eliza left the stage, she noticed Hughes being escorted out of the building by security, his face contorted with impotent rage. As he passed Eliza, he muttered, "You won't last a month." Eliza simply smiled serenely. In the pocket of her newly acquired blazer was a recording device, the same one that had captured every threat and racist comment Hughes had made over the past few days. Desperately trying to cover up his scheme, that night, in her new office overlooking the city, Eliza finally allowed herself to cry. They weren't tears of sadness, but of deep catharsis, 6 years of cleaning hallways while her potential was denied. 6 years of hearing, your resume must have gotten lost, and maybe you're not a good cultural fit. She picked up the phone and called her mother, who had sacrificed everything to pay for her education. "I did it, Mom," she said simply, her voice breaking. What no one at the Grand Monarch Hotel could have predicted that day was that the real transformation was just beginning. While some executives were still processing the shock of seeing their old privileges crumble, others were already realizing the inevitable truth: true talent, when finally unleashed, not only corrects past injustices but completely redefines the future. The fall of Hughes and his discriminatory scheme was only the first chapter in a complete overhaul that would shake the foundations of not just that hotel, but the entire American hotel industry. And it all started with a simple phone call in Dutch. 6 months had passed since that fateful day when Eliza answered a call in Dutch in the lobby of the Grand Monarch Hotel. What had once been an isolated case of personal justice had turned into a silent revolution within the American hotel industry. Eliza's office on the 32nd floor now overlooked all of Manhattan. A discreet plaque on the oak door read, "Dr. Eliza Grant, Vice President of Diversity and International Relations." The salary was 5 figures monthly, not annually, but the real power lay beyond the title or financial compensation. The restructuring committee was assembled and waiting. Dr. Grant, Eliza's executive assistant, now her close friend, announced, "All regional managers are on the conference call." Eliza nodded, taking a deep breath before entering the conference room where Blake and the board of directors were waiting. It was the day of the final presentation of the Invisible Talents program, a personal initiative Eliza had developed to identify and promote qualified employees who had been systematically overlooked throughout the hotel chain. "The results of the pilot program have exceeded all of our expectations," Eliza began, presenting the numbers on the screen. "In just 6 months, we've identified 147 employees with skills in languages, finance, management, and technology, who have been in roles well below their capabilities. 83% of them are Black, Latino, or from other minority groups." Blake nodded approvingly. The program had been his first demand when accepting his promotion, not just to fix his own situation, but to change the entire system. "Most impressive," Eliza continued, "is the financial impact. Outsourced translation costs are down 78%. International customer satisfaction is up 42%, and our diversity ratings are now at the top of the industry. All this while providing real opportunities to people who are already on our payroll." Across the country, Sarah Harrison watched the conference broadcast from a small hotel in California. After an extensive investigation, she had escaped termination by accepting a demotion and transfer. Now she managed the laundry at a second-rate property. A daily humiliation for someone who had once rejected talent based on prejudice. "The next expansion of the program will include an internal mentoring system," Eliza explained. "Each promoted talent commits to identifying and supporting other employees with potential." Thomas Hughes was not attending the conference. After his dismissal, no luxury hotel would hire him. Allegations of systematic discrimination and embezzlement had permanently tarnished his name in the industry. Rumor had it that he was now working as a night manager at a roadside motel in Arizona. His niece, Ashley, had to return all her inflated payments, complete a professional ethics program, and was now studying Mandarin, ironically, with a scholarship created by the Coleman Foundation for Inclusive Language Education. In closing, Eliza said, turning directly to the camera that broadcasted to all properties in the chain, "I want to share something personal." She paused, letting the silence fill the room. "When I was little, my mother worked as a maid in a hotel like this one. She had a college degree, but she never got a job in her field. She always told me, Eliza, no matter how much they try to make you feel invisible, your worth is not dependent on their recognition. Eliza took a deep breath, maintaining her composure. My mother passed away believing that some doors would never open for people like us. She never lived to see this moment, to see that her sacrifice was worth it. Across the room, several executives, many newly promoted through the program, wiped away tears discreetly. The true power of a company isn't how much it makes, but the potential it unleashes. For decades, the hospitality industry, like so many others, buried extraordinary talent under service uniforms, assuming that people of certain colors, accents, or backgrounds were only fit for invisible roles. Blake stood up, applauding, followed by the entire room and hundreds of employees watching remotely. Later that day, Eliza received an envelope in her office. Inside was a postcard from Amsterdam and a letter from a University of Applied Linguistics offering her a position as a visiting professor. Professor Van Dyke, who had made that fateful call in Dutch 6 months earlier, had been following her meteoric rise. Ironically, Eliza thought as she looked out the window at the city, I have Harrison to thank for punishing me that day. If she had simply given me a warning, I might still be cleaning the same rooms, my degree gathering dust. The next day, Eliza officially launched a scholarship fund for hotel employees and their children, financed in part by her new salary. The first beneficiary, the daughter of her former cleaning colleague, who dreamed of studying hotel management. What had started as a phone call in Dutch had sent ripples that now spread far beyond that hotel, far beyond that industry. The message was clear: talent exists everywhere. What is lacking are opportunities and recognition. True justice is not just punishing those who discriminate, but rebuilding entire systems so that prejudice has nowhere to hide. Eliza's sweetest revenge was not seeing her antagonists fall, but watching hundreds of people like her finally rise. If this story moved you and made you reflect on how silent prejudice can stifle extraordinary talent, leave your comment and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories about people who have turned injustice into platforms for real change. After all, the greatest lesson Eliza teaches us is that true greatness isn't about overcoming barriers alone, but about ensuring the doors remain open for everyone who comes after.